So for this morning's topic, I want to start by teaching you a couple of words that I learned in seminary. Maybe you know them, but I suspect that they're going to be new to at least some of you. The first one is pericope. Can you repeat that? Pericope? A pericope is a passage usually from the Bible. It could be a story or a wise saying or a parable, but it's one complete thought. So, for example, the story of the Good Samaritan would be a pericope. Or each one of the 10 Commandments is its own little pericope. As Unitarian Universalists, we're free to speak on anything we want on Sunday mornings. We could talk about a bit of poetry, like what my reading was. We could talk about the Sunday comics. We could talk about a popular movie. Wherever we find inspiration. And my inspiration for today is a ceramic tile that I saw on the wall of the Oakland, California subway station. Now, once we have a pericope, remember that word pericope? Got that? Still in short-term memory. The next thing we do is exegesis, of course. Can you say that? Exegesis? That's Jesus with a G, not Jesus with a J. I don't want anybody getting confused here. An exegesis is a close reading in the hope of finding inspiration in the exegetical analysis. So today I'm going to exegete a ceramic tile. This particular ceramic tile comes from California, and it's a hand-painted ceramic tile, one of many on a wall mural in an Oakland, California subway station. There's this big set of tiles, 200 or so, and in the center are some that explain what it's all about. And I'll read to you what the center tiles say. Firestorm Community Mural Project. This mural is dedicated to the survivors of the 1991 Oakland Hills firestorm. Their stories expressed here in over 2,000 handmade tiles reflect and pay tribute to the human spirit and its capacity to overcome tragedy and loss. Sponsored by the Office of Mayor, October 1994. The Oakland firestorm is this incredibly fast-moving fire. It leveled part of the city in 2-hour period on an otherwise uninteresting Sunday afternoon. At its peak, one house was destroyed every 11 seconds. Many of the mural's tiles show things that were lost in the firestorm, a picture of a bicycle, or a church building, or a house. The tile I selected for my reflection today was unique in that it offered some advice. And here's a picture of the tile. There's one at the front of your announcements has a thing. This is a slightly larger picture. You can see that it's signed by someone named Marion Baldwin. This is what it looks like in color. Oops, that way up. There we go. Always use your best shine. So the plates have little pink patterns around the edges. Can't tell that in black and white. So Marion's tile tells subway riders a deep truth. Always use your best china. The picture shows 6 place settings, and I imagine that those plates and goblets were a gift to Marion from someone. Perhaps they were wedding gifts. A gift that was carefully put away until some special occasion. And because it's part of the firestorm mural, I assume that the box of plates and cups was lost when the Oakland Hills burned at the end of October 1991. After large-scale tragedies, the sadness remains. As part of my training with the Unitarian Universalist Trauma Response Ministry, we learned that almost always a community tragedy will create an emotional trajectory: fear, sadness, recovery. You can see it in the years following 9/11. You can see it after the levee failures in New Orleans. And it can be seen in the years that followed the Oakland Hills firestorm. Anniversaries are the worst, by the way, and perhaps these tiles were created to express the grief of the third anniversary, giving voice to the sadness. And I want to honor the emotions expressed in the mural. We were not there. We cannot know. Now, some of you may know this already, but tragedies like the Oakland firestorm can cause people to rethink their lives and their purpose. And I am only speculating that the prophet Marian has done this too. Always use your best china, she said. What do these words mean to you? Where does this tile take you? When I first encountered this great teaching, I thought about my grandmother's Wedgwood plates, fine china that was made in Staffordshire, England, which I inherited years ago. I use them once a year at Thanksgiving. Mostly they just sit in a box up on a shelf. That was my first thoughts when I read the words best china. But then I had to consider the other words, always use. Always? If I always use the Wedgwood, won't it fade or chip, not be worth as much? If I always use the Wedgwood, maybe somebody will drop one of them, and my dozen matched plates will become a partial set. Then won't it stop being my best china and become my everyday china? So I found myself wanting some relief from all this. I wanted to bargain with the prophet. I wanted the words to be, use your best china more often. I wanted to be in control. I wanted to be able to pick and choose when it was appropriate to use it. And maybe some of you are feeling this way too. Maybe some of you have heard that phrase. It's one of those pericopes in the Bible, love your enemy. And I know that I tend to want to change that pericope to tolerate your enemy. It's a well-known phenomenon in religion. Over generations, hard instructions, hard prophetic words are limited, softened, and made more palatable. So this ceramic tile from 1994 hasn't had time to soften yet, hasn't had time to fade or be rewritten. So I guess, whenever I have a guest, I should use my best plates. Not the paper plates that I was expecting to use for those hot dogs and hamburgers, but my best china. And also the best glassware that I have, not those Flintstone glasses that I've been using most times. And my best knives, forks, and spoons as well. And why? Because my guest is worth it. It's basic hospitality. The teachings of the past are full of stories about hospitality, and any guest could be the Buddha. Any guest could be the prophet Elijah. Anyone you meet could be an angel. I cheated a little bit there. I wonder if any of you noticed. I modified the words of today's sacred text. It doesn't say, whenever you have a guest, use your best china. It says, always use your best china. And so, as I understand it, this saddles me with an additional burden dinner tonight is going to be Kraft macaroni and cheese, but it's going to be Kraft macaroni and cheese on Wedgwood. And that's because I have to treat myself as if I was the Buddha or the prophet Elijah or an angel. Do you treat yourself that way? And if not, why not? So one of the cool things about exegesis is the possibility to read your short passage or pericope. Good, you got it. You're remembering it. Say it 3 times and you got it forever. From different points of view. For example, the Good Samaritan story. How many of you know the Good Samaritan story? Yes, yeah. This is pretty good. I'm going to assume that you know it, or that you will just let me keep going anyway. So you can understand this story from the point of view of the man who has been beaten by thieves and left for dead in the ditch. You can read that story from the point of view of somebody who's in the ditch. You can also read the story from the point of view of the Samaritan who is walking by. And what you get out of the story is different depending on who you are. You could also be the innkeeper who has the job of taking this sick man and nursing him back to health. Or even the point of view of the donkey, which people don't usually take that point of view, but you've been given the job of carrying this battered person to the inn. All these points of view, in addition to the point of view of the author, who we assume is Jesus, and the audience. So let's consider our pericope from different points of view. We've already considered what a host would hear. Use the best china when you have guests. We mentioned the point of view of the guests. Do we treat ourselves as being worthy of the best china? And the possible motivations of the prophet Marion and the mayor of Oakland, California. Let us for a moment attempt to take the point of view of the china itself. Always use your best china. And here Marge Piercy helps us out when she writes, Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries out for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. How does the water pitcher that you inherited from your Aunt Beatrice feel about being left up there on the top shelf? Never really noticed. How do your Christmas plates feel down there in the bottom cabinet? The pitcher cries out for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. Always use your best china. So the children's story this morning wasn't an original story by me. It actually comes from a very unlikely source. It comes from the introduction of the 1922 edition of Etiquette by Emily Post. In Emily Post's story, we find 2 groups of soldiers, American, well, they aren't actually said to be American, they're another nation, and French. But they sounded like American in the way the story was written. The American group embodies the belief that war is hell, and they see that today is a day to get through, to be endured. And their midday meal is something to just keep them alive. It's harder to imagine what must be going on in the mind of the Frenchman. There's this slow, deadly firestorm of war that's moving across their country. Some of them have already lost homes to the Germans, lost all their possessions, maybe lost members of their family. Who knows how it's going to end? Who knows if any of them will even survive till the armistice, if there ever is an armistice. But the Frenchmen see their meager rations as a means to celebrate today. They'll use everything that they have available right now and celebrate civilization. One might say that they will pursue civilized ends through civilized means. My struggle with these prophetic words began when I missed a San Francisco-bound subway train and had 20 minutes to wait in an Oakland, California BART station. And these words now shape how I make decisions. They take me out of myself. They've taught me to see today as a day for celebration, not a day to be endured. So where do these words take you? You as individuals. You as the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Peninsula. Where do they take you as an organization? When you greet newcomers, when you decide on social justice programs, are you metaphorically using paper plates? Or are you using your best china? Do you see the work that you do here, even the committee meetings, as necessary grub to be consumed, or as a chance to celebrate? And do you use the same plates every day and let other ones languish in the back of the cabinet? You know, Marge Piercy's poem is actually in our hymnal, but nobody quotes the prophet Marion except me. The pericope, always use your best china, is not canonized in any religious tradition, East or West. And we Unitarian Universalists, certainly, have the tradition of keeping our distance from any prophetic words, at least until they've softened up a little bit and we can keep control over them. So what can a teaching like always use your best china do for us now, today, here, in our lives and living in our world? What sort of beloved community happens when we open our china cabinets, open our hearts, when we share the place at the table with whoever comes through the door? What happens when not only do we offer others a seat at the banquet table, what happens when we declare that our banquet table is welcoming to all? What happens when we realize that the table of life is not something that can be offered by one person to another, but by its very nature, it is available to everybody, though men and women are forever trying to lock it away. So bring your beloved china out of the cupboard. Bring that cardboard box up from the basement that has the goblets in it, and carefully, very carefully, bring down those cups and saucers from the high shelf. Bring your amphora out of the museum and fill it with wine. Set your finest things on the welcome table today, for we do not know if the winds of war may shift, and tomorrow all will be gone. Listen, even your coffee pots are crying out for work that is real. Let's end with a short saying from W.E.B. Du Bois. Now is the accepted time, not tomorrow, not some more convenient season. It is today that our best work can be done, and not some future day or future year. It is today that we fit ourselves to the greater usefulness of tomorrow. Today is the seed time. Now are the hours of work. And tomorrow comes the harvest and the playtime. Your banquet awaits. Bon appetit. And now what?